Happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect One-Word Conversations. One-Word Conversations is a self-discovery relationship building conversation designed to invite you to look at your language. Many times we come up with all the lovely words that we can think of and still find ourselves in a place of disconnection. But I propose that we have a one-word conversation so we can learn a little bit about ourselves, the person that we're speaking with, and just maybe build on our relationship. One More Conversations is brought to you by I Am William Brown, a place to help you be yourself and live your life. And one way that I spotlight what's available at IamWilliamBrown.com, the store, is our U cards. Our U cards are a part of the Beyond the Shell series. Beyond the Shell series is a series of children's books, Finding You Beyond What Protects You and The Journey to Stay You, a journal, and the cards. The cards are a game, intention setting cards, and also journal prompts. So the cards that I picked to set the intention for today's show is I am lovable, you are worthy, and be you, the world will adjust. Be you, the world will adjust. So with the intention set, this is the moment where I invite you to like, share, ask questions, do all those things to let me know that you are also a part of this conversation. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, just hit the bell and subscribe so you can see when we go live. So today is another mystery word day where my guest has volunteered to get the word live on the air. So as I do, I invite my guest in so we can have a conversation.
Good morning, William.
Good morning. This is the moment where I invite my guests to introduce themselves however it feels comfortable to them.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm Ellia Harris. My company is the Potential Center, and that means that I am passionate about individuals and organizations living up to their potential. I do this work through training and coaching in creative problem solving and innovation. And I love what I do because it gives me the opportunity to bring in my background, which covers all kinds of areas: marketing, nonprofit work, even being a professional organizer.
Right.
And I'm so looking forward to this conversation. I can't wait to find out what my word is.
Well, it's thank you for being a part of this conversation. I met you a couple of weeks ago, and it's like sometimes when I do the the quick pitch of the show, it's like I don't know how it's going to land, but it landed well, and now you're here. So here is the word. Of all the words that I could pick out, this word kept on coming up for me, and I wanted to explore it with you. So, how does the word mistake land for you?
This is so interesting. One of the tenets of innovation is about being comfortable with failure. And so this word really resonates for me because I do a lot of work with leaders in terms of creating an environment that is conducive to creative problem solving and designing a culture of innovation. And one of the biggest things that I do when working with leaders is helping them get comfortable with this idea of letting people make mistakes and helping people learn from their mistakes. Now, I talk about this in a work setting, but I think one of the reasons I love doing this teaching is that it not only creates a stronger workplace, but it contributes to our personal lives as well. When you're more comfortable with making mistakes and coming up with ideas, and you have no idea what those ideas could lead to.
Right.
It just lifts people up. So I think even in the home life and the social life, being forgiving of when people make mistakes, whether it's young kids, which is especially important as they're experimenting, or with our friends. And, friends sometimes say things that, they
Right.
should not have said.
Right.
Give them, the opportunity to learn from that. So that's my starting thought.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. As an entrepreneur, as someone who is, starting, a practice, and my practice is, self-awareness, right? So, getting aware of yourself. And the one thing that I got when I was thinking about this word is that there are many times, I'll say this, that I wouldn't call it a mistake. So something would happen and I wouldn't call it a mistake because it's like, okay, it's just a lesson, right? Right. And it's like, and I'm not going to call it a mistake. And I realized that I was taking out the power of acknowledging that it's a mistake. It is, and this is how I've been breaking it apart. It is a mistake. I
Ah,
mistake there, and the more that I admit, own, it's like, you know what? I tried to do this. I thought this was going to happen, and this happened. Um, it was a mistake. And I just kind of go from there. And it's like really trying to find the power in just doing something and acknowledging sometimes my doing gets ahead of me or gets away from me or something, and just being okay with that.
yeah, yeah. And I think if we can be gentle with ourselves and with each other around this, human beings do not come out fully formed. It takes us
Right.
years to grow into ourselves. And so we're always learning along the way. And I really think that if we took this approach of, okay, we need to take another take,
Right.
in film language or whatever,
Right.
we wouldn't have the kinds of conflicts that we've been having over the centuries.
Right. I had a word, it's probably a month ago now. The word was failure.
Mm,
And it was what came up within that conversation is that, failure is just information, right? It's like, and it's like the more that there is not this emotional attachment, right? Or this emotional story around mistakes or failures or all the doing, then we can get information to do something else, something more. And I love it that you brought up innovation, and possibility, right? Up in around this conversation, because there are sometimes I have my mistakes, and it's like, okay, that's what happened, and that's is always that's always how it's going to be, right? It's like in my
mm.
mind it's like, oh crap, there's this finality to this, and that's I mean, I know it's not the truth, but I act as if that's the truth.
Yes, yes. Um, you said a couple of things that spurred other thoughts for me. That last one was, it's so easy to just turn things around. And if we acknowledge that we're acting as if this catastrophe is going to happen,
Right.
then it's just as easy to turn that around and act as if
Right.
everything is going to work out fine.
Right. Wow. Hmm.
The other thought
Wow.
that I had was, when you mentioned stories, and yes, we do tell stories about ourselves, and I, for one, am a terrible storyteller. Um, and other people have these brilliant stories about themselves. I do wonder if we lock ourselves into those stories sometimes, uh, by not taking on that let's flip the as if switch.
Right.
Is our story something that propelled us into doing our passionate work now? Well, that's
Hmm.
great. What if we change the story from what prompted you to do that work now? What was the trigger to
Right.
get you to change the disastrous event, which is often what it is, and turn that story into something positive. I worry that people stay in a negative space,
Hmm.
and maybe this is why they focus on mistakes.
Right. Yeah, for me, and it's interesting that the two cards, well, all three of the cards that came up with um, to set the intention for this conversation is, I am lovable, you are
Mm,
worthy, right? And be you, the world will adjust. It is, and the one thing that really shows up for me is that my worthiness is connected to my doing.
mhm,
And I have been working hard to have that uncoupling, right? Right.
mhm,
And just, I'm just worthy. And it's like my doing, I can have mistakes, right? I can create, but that has nothing to do with my worthiness. That has nothing to do with how lovable I am, right?
yeah,
And I think it's, because in some cases I feel that we are conditioned to be always doing something,
mhm,
that doing becomes us, right? We kind of, because we're always doing, or there's a feeling that I'm always doing, so that's who I am. I am my doing. And it's like, um, is that the truth? And so anytime I screw up, right, or have a mistake within that, now I am my mistake. I am a
mm.
mistake. And then it just, for me, it just spirals down into, to something that is not beneficial or helpful for me.
When I'm doing the training in creative problem solving, one of the things that I talk about a lot and bring into the practice that I'm doing is this concept of fun, of being a child again, of being free
Mm,
to experiment, to express ourselves in the silliest ways, because
right,
oftentimes it's the silly ideas that lead to, oh, yes, this is the thing that's going to work for us.
right,
Um, so I encourage people to, bring their child out, the
right,
playful child, not the one that was told, "Oh, no, that was bad."
right,
And to live into that child again and, walk around feeling awe and wonder. I do this, every day. I go for a walk at the end of the day, and this time of year, all the trees are coming into blossom. I never get tired of it. It's like,
right,
oh, this is so beautiful. So, I wish that we could bring our child out more than we do.
right. What's coming up for me, because I've been sitting with this week, and so I agree. Everything I want to bring the child, right, to my work, to my life, and to kind of, really embrace that. But too often, I believe, and this is how it's showing up, and this is what I become aware of, that I bring my childhood to the situation. And it's something that
Wow.
you said, that, there were times as a child that we were told, don't do this, this is a mistake, stop this, and everything that. And those memories are those things that I have about, a core value that I have is curiosity.
Mhm.
But as a child, my curiosity was a source of don't want to say challenge for my for my single mom, right? And my siblings, right? So it's like, what the hell are you doing now, right? Type of thing, or what? And so I made that mean the story that I made from that was my following my curiosity is a mistake.
Mhm.
And so there were many years where I just didn't do that. And so now that I'm embracing that. So I guess, asking for a friend, how do we embrace this childlike way of looking at the world and showing up to our doing without bringing in what was missing from our childhood?
Um, Now, I'm not a psychologist.
Okay. It's just a conversation, not therapy, I guess, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that bought me a little bit of time because I've got two thoughts running at this, in parallel.
Okay. It's like, say this. No, say that.
Yeah, yeah, no. So one thought is that one of the cards that you came up with was "Be you, the world will adjust." So reminding your friend to do that, and also, again, I've been through therapy in the past, and so I know how it works. I, I, again, this is a personal wish. I wish that people were able to say, whatever happened before is in the past. It may have contributed to who I am now,
Right.
but it does not define me.
Right.
And so who I am at this point in time is a curious person. And curiosity is fundamental. It's one, I talk about the 5 foundations of creative thinking. And curiosity is one of those foundations about, looking at things and seeing, if you're trying to solve a problem, for example, is this actually the right problem? If
Right.
you're listening to somebody else's point of view, taking the time to listen and ask questions to make sure that you understand what they're actually saying or suggesting. Um, and, I also had my issues with that. It's taken me a while to be comfortable with saying this, but I lost 3 jobs, which I think I've just, I came to realize at the end of the day was because of my curiosity. I wanted to find better ways of doing things. And so I
Right.
was asking questions and I was saying, well, let's try it this way or let's try it that way. And it did not fit with the status quo of the organization.
Got
And
it.
it wasn't until I read a book on creative thinking or creativity that I realized, oh, okay, this was the issue for me. They could not understand my creative point of view, and it
Right.
didn't gel with what everybody else was doing.
Right. No, I totally get it. It's like, um, I was, and in some work settings too, that I would ask a question and then I would ask another question. And then it was like, uh-oh, I think I asked one too many questions here
Mhm.
because now they know that,
But you
that
see,
what,
sometimes when people ask questions, they're putting themselves out as somebody who doesn't know the answer.
right,
And that's not always the case, and I think that that's the issue sometimes.
right. And it's like, really, um, how can I honor what's what's true for someone, right? What someone is currently dealing with,
Mhm,
and still invite them to, um, I guess, to the potential, right? The potential
mhm,
of their life, the possibilities of their life. Because sometimes they're, sometimes in my coaching, sometimes in my relationships, I've been married for 30 years, and And there are some days that I can, I have a little more wiggle room that I can,
Mhm.
um, suggest something to my wife, and it's it's, hey, let's great. And there's sometimes it's like, no, you've gone too far here, right? That was a mistake, right? I don't know,
Take
it's
two.
right, take two, right? But it is that type of thing, and I think it's a part of that creativity and curiosity to, I don't want to say just look at the boundaries, but it's like, how can you honor the space and kind of invite possibility and innovation, and something. I think that's um and it's not like, for me, the image that I got was putting your hand on a stove, right? But it's like, I don't want to think, or hopefully I don't feel that um curiosity or innovation is that same you know exercise. It's there
Right.
another way, a more positive image, right? Or
Yeah.
inviting image than that.
Yeah. Um, I used to run a meetup group called Conversations That Matter, and I
Mm,
had a set of ground rules that I would bring forward at the beginning of each session. And these came from things like Gracious Space and I can't remember all the books, World Cafe, things like that. Um, and so some of the concepts were things like, uh, of course, be respectful of
mm,
what other people are saying. And so that's facing outwards. Facing inwards, be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable
mm.
with what
Got it.
you're hearing. We all have different ways of thinking about things, and we're not always going to be in sync with how other people think. So, for the sake of learning, for the sake of coming up with new ideas, we need to say, okay, I'm going to sit back and listen to this fully. So it's having those kinds of principles, and I think that they apply to everyday life as well, whether it's with our families or, thank goodness we're having wonderful conversations now about cultural diversity. We can
Right.
use those conversations there as well, those principles.
Right. Before I guess forward this conversation, let's just say it that way. I
Mhm.
want to let you know of a connection that we have, that you just
Oh,
shared. This
okay.
show, the first 5 shows of this one word conversations was called Conversations to Make a Difference.
Wow, very nice.
um, and within, I think, episode 1 of Conversations to Make a Difference, my guest said, "Oh, this has been a lovely one-word conversation," and I was like, "Huh." That's kind of that kind of rolls a little easier than that. So we can still make a difference, but let's try to do the one-word conversation. So after a week, I changed the name of the show to one-word conversations. So I'm with you, wanting to
Good.
to make a difference, and just kind of see. And I think we make a difference by being in the conversation, by
Yes.
being curious, by looking for the possible. And within my communication, when in my coaching, I there's a framework of perfected perfecting communication versus perfect communication.
Mhm.
And too often I would look for perfect communication, the perfect words, the perfect time, the perfect setting. And when I didn't see those things or feel that those things were present, I wouldn't be in communication. So I was, so stories were created, right? It's like
Yes.
all these other things. So perfecting conversation is to say what I'm going to say. And because our relationship, you will help me, right? Right? Say, it's like, oh, okay, interesting that you use that word. It's like, and it's like, well, when you said that, and that's the conversation those are the conversations that make a difference. And
Mhm.
that's what, one word conversations is all about, because I felt on many levels that there was a mistake in my communication. And when I feel that there's a mistake, that I'm going to say the wrong thing, or I'm going to cause something that I don't want to deal with, then I notice for myself, I won't say anything. I'll stop talking. And because I was afraid to make a mistake, then I noticed that I wasn't having conversations that will make a difference. And
Mhm.
and so that is my way of really basically having a mistake. It's like, how is this word, or how is this word? It's how it's this word, and then from
Yeah.
that you'll have a sentence, and then there's a paragraph, and then there's a story. So there is taking people through that, one word at a time, to really connect, to make a difference.
So I have a question for you because
Yes.
you raised a curiosity for me
Wonderful.
in terms of, and I think what you said applies to a lot of people, that we self-censor.
Right.
We can feel that we might be saying something contentious,
Right.
and so we hold back and we end up not saying anything. And then we stew on it later on and
Right.
think, should I have said that? Or, what if I had said this instead of that? How would it feel, do you think, if in the moment you asked yourself that question and said, how can I preface what I'm about to say in a way that lets the other person know that I'm actually unsure of me sharing this thought? Could it be something like, this may be a little bit off base. I'm still working it out in my head, but let me
Right.
just go ahead and start talking about it.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed that I do that a lot, and I'm okay with doing that. Before, I
Mhm.
didn't want to admit that, I didn't know something, right? I don't know what that was
Yes.
all about, right? So it's like, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but here it is, right? Right, and because there was this feeling that if I would admit that I am still figuring this out, or I'm not quite sure, there was a feeling that I'm inviting people not to listen to me.
Mm.
I am saying, you know what? I really don't believe this, so don't even give this any consideration. That was the story was in my head. And as a coach, I have come to terms with, there is a number of things that I say within my coaching that I don't yet currently believe, and I'm okay with that.
Mm.
And because we're kind of working this out together. I mean, it's about
Mhm.
self-awareness and making choices around that. And I've been saying for a couple months now that, you know, I will invite you to to take on that you are whole and complete. But at the same time, I want you to consider that you are currently not yet aware of your completeness,
Mhm.
and you're not missing anything. You're just not aware of it. And there's parts of me that's like, oh, okay, I totally get that. And there's some parts that's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like, and so it's like, the more that I am saying it, or trusting myself that, it may be a mistake, right?
Mhm.
It may not, it may be, uh, it may be an opportunity to really step into something. And I think with doing this show, it's like, imperfect actions, right?
Exactly.
There are some lessons that we can't learn unless we are taking action.
Mhm.
And it's like, and in some cases, all of our actions are imperfect, because what is perfect? Right.
Yes.
And so if we just say, hey, their actions are imperfect, so let's just go.
And you mentioned something earlier that I made a note of because I wanted to bring it back in. And
Okay.
this may, in fact, be a good topic for another one word conversation. And that word is perfection or
Hmm.
perfectionism.
Right.
And in fact, perfectionism is really about procrastination.
Hmm.
So
Got
I
it.
love that you brought in, the imperfect action. And, I've been following that tenet for the last year or two, and I have made so much progress as a result of doing that.
Hmm.
So I'm super glad that you bring that up with people. And I also, something was coming back into my head that you said earlier about, well, how can we help people, live up to their potential? And for me, because I've done a lot of coaching, it's about I can't make you make this change.
Right.
You have to be in the right place for it.
Right.
And so, I see my job as helping people think about what's important for them. I do a lot of work around goals. And once they realize this is my key goal in this area
Right.
of my life, that's my key goal in that area of my life, it's
Right.
so much easier for them to see what's important and what's not as important.
Right. Yeah. Within my coaching, there's I say there's a thing, TLC methodology playing around in the background. It's like running in the background, and I invite people to just consider this. So anytime that they're going after a new possibility or looking at a challenge, if it's losing weight, there's a number of things that we say that we want to find improvement in. And so it's a TLC, and we look at the tools, your language, and your commitments.
Mm.
And really, the invitation of looking at, there was many times that we go to tackle. I'll speak for myself. I'll go to tackle something and not realize all the tools that I have available. I mean, the tools
Mhm.
of people, the knowledge that I have, all of the things that are available that I have that can help me solve this problem or get to the other thing. And then my language, sometimes I can say that this is something that I want to get better at or improve or eliminate. But how I'm speaking about it lets me know that, something else is happening, right? So just getting aware of my language around it. And then when I get to commitments, it's like sometimes there are some spoken commitments, and then our actions tell us what we're really committed to. And so, with all of that, with all of those three areas, I ask people to put things together, put that all together, and have some self-compassion for themselves, because there are some time when you're going to misuse your tools or not have all the tools that you need, and you're going to make a story about that. There are some times that you're not going to have the language that is in support of what you're trying to do, and don't beat yourself up about that. And sometimes your commitments are going to be out of whack, right? Of what you're trying to do, and just have some self-compassion, about that too. And it's really that those times when you feel that you're making a mistake, or that it is a mistake, is the time where your compassion needs to show up,
Yeah,
or
I
get an
agree.
opportunity to show up. Um, and I think, again, as I mentioned, I I know that my worthiness is not connected to my doing, but in my doing, every once in a while, it's like, you suck because you did this, right? You
Mhm.
made a mistake, and it's like, don't ever, do that again. And then it misses the opportunity for potential, the next, the
Yes.
um, what is there that I know within my being that it's possible. But
And there's another aspect to that too,
go
which
ahead.
is that um, It's not just about, how can I do it better, but paying attention to what happened and thinking, is this a sign that I shouldn't be doing this at all?
Got it.
Do I need to just not do this activity anymore? Do I
Right.
need to change paths? Do I need to change the person I'm doing it with?
Right.
So, there's that aspect of learning from the mistake as well.
Right. There is I had the word done was one word, and what came up in that conversation was there's a difference between completion and done. There are some things that you can be done with that is not complete, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's completion, and it's just I'm complete with this. I'm not
Yeah.
going to, right? And
Yeah.
it's that type of awareness that I can be done with something for this moment and just put it aside, and just kind of and then pick it up again. I had this very interesting. I don't know if it's kind of funny because I wasn't going to share it because I was still kind of dealing with it, but I had this image, you know, around my meditation practice of me driving in a car. And there was like no awareness of where I was going. I was just driving. I knew I was like moving. And then I looked in the rearview mirror and I saw like a number of things that I had that fell out of the car, right? That just like were just like all of the things that I was done with, but it wasn't complete. Let's just say it. Let's put it that way. And so in that moment, I had a choice to stop the car and to get them right, and or keep driving. And it was just very interesting because I felt like I was all over the road. It was like
Mm.
because I wasn't looking ahead, I was looking back, and I wasn't making a decision. I'm all over the place. And it was just like, all right, this is a mistake, right? I mean, it's like, I need to make a decision. I need to either stop the car, keep going, or or at least look at the road, right? Right? I mean, it's like, or something. And so that's what I'm dealing with. And when this word mistake comes up, I was like, okay, there are so many mistakes in that in that story, right? So, but how can I, how can I like be with and deal with that and see how that is showing up in my life and what message is my subconscious trying to tell
Yes.
me, right?
How many learning opportunities were in that vision?
Right. And it's like really, I, I th- I really think within my coaching, I say for myself that self-awareness is not the answer. It's a key. It's an access point because we still have a choice to
Yes.
make once we become aware. And
Mhm.
I think in regards to a mistake or a mistake, um, is really that when I'm aware that is something that I intended to do is not happening, or it's not happening the way the expectation of it. Just use that as information to kind of make another choice, um, and and just being okay with that. And
Mhm.
so there's a part of me that's like, that's derelict. You have to be a little bit more responsible with in your doing than that. But I think it in some cases it could be that simple.
Mhm. Mhm. And, I keep coming back to the way you've reframed that word into a mistake. And, I love the concept of walking around and saying, "Okay, take two."
Right.
If I say something, and we do this, as we're preparing dinner and we're trying to multitask and we say
Right.
something that just doesn't come out right. I
Right.
I can now go, "Take two."
Right. Right. It's like that was a mistake. Yes, absolutely. Right. Right. It's like take two. Right. Right.
Well,
Just
William, we could just talk about this for hours. However,
yes.
I'm sure that your listeners have other things that they want to move on to and learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So is there anything that's come up within this other than our take two motto, right? Our way of showing up that you want to leave everybody with?
I think the overriding feeling for me out of this conversation is just a reminder that we are not perfect beings,
Mm,
that we can learn from anything. We can be aware of and take lessons from anything that comes our way, like through your meditation. Just sitting quietly with our eyes closed for a few minutes and just being
right.
allows the space for thoughts to come to us and say, consider this or
Mm,
consider that. That nothing is truly a mistake. Yes, there have been some absolutely horrendous historical mistakes,
right.
but hopefully society has learned from those. And
Right.
well, it's not that obvious yet, but
Right.
baby steps.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Great. I put in the comments of a program that you have coming up. Would you want to share what that is and how people
Yeah.
can be a
Thanks.
part of that?
Thank you, William. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm running it's kind of like an online office hours coaching program for leaders. It's called the Leadership Lab: Creative Problem Solving in the Workplace,
Hmm,
and it's a Zoom call, weekly Zoom call. It's a monthly subscription. And you come with problems that you're experiencing in the workplace, um, from a leadership perspective. And we look at different creative problem solving techniques for, first of all, defining the problem. Is it the right problem? And then coming up with ways of dealing with that. And
right.
another big part of that is, how do you get your team working better together and stronger? And creative problem solving techniques are a really great way of doing that. So there's information at thepotentialcenter.com/leadership hyphen lab. And I believe you put that link in the
Yep.
notes. So
Yep.
thanks for
It's in
putting
a
it up.
notes and in the comments. So everyone that will watch this will get that information. And
Great.
thank you very much. This has
Well,
been a lovely
thank you.
conversation.
Yeah, I've really
And
enjoyed it.
And again, thank you very much for getting up early and having this conversation with me around the word mistake. Hopefully, it wasn't a mistake for you.
It was not. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much, William, for
Oh,
inviting me.
wonderful. If you could stay in the green room for a couple moments, I would love to say our
Of
goodbyes
course.
from there. Okay. Oh, wow. A mistake. Um, take two. Or, there was uh, an opportunity today that within my meditation that it invited me to admit my mistakes and to I guess to show up fully in my life. I think that's what it was. And it's like there is really an opportunity to just another opportunity to do something. And I just really I'm working hard. I'm still working. I'm a work in progress, as they say, to separate my worthiness and my lovability from my doings. Because when you are yourself, you know, be you, the world will adjust. And so there's no mistakes. There are just opportunities. It's like there's no mistakes and there are mistakes because there's a way that I look at something and it will happen differently It's just a mistake. But it doesn't have to mean anything more than that. So, I don't know. That falls into the category as the petty importance. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, that it is not important at all, but we make it very important. So I invite you to reach out to me at IamWilliamBrown.com for a complimentary coaching session to help you be yourself and live your life. Because the world wants you, the world needs you, but the world isn't waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you next time on One Word Conversation.